Welcome to the Golden Cubes, Marvel Snap's premier award show, voted on by you. A few weeks ago, I picked the nominees for these categories, and you, the viewers of this channel, voted on each of them. Now, it is traditional to start these things off with some kind of monologue, so I have prepared a few light entertainment style jokes. Now, it's very cold out. I just moved to New York. But seriously, it really is cold out here. I saw Merlin and Gorgon huddling together for warmth. But on a serious note, New York's new mayor, Zoran Mamdani, has announced legislation to freeze the rent. I say we shouldn't be freezing the rent, we should be freezing the prices of Marvel Snap cards. Thank you so much. I've been KMBest. That's my time. I'm going to hand it over to KMBest, the host of the Golden Cubes. That's right. Welcome to the Golden Cubes, the best of 2025 Marvel Snap Awards. Without any further ado, let's jump into the first category. The first category is Best Nerf, and the nominees are Shang-Chi, going to only destroying one 10 power plus card at his location. Debris, no longer putting rocks on her opponent's side of the board. Juggernaut, going to 4-5. And Enchantress, going to 4-8. And the winner of the Golden Cube is, in a landslide, Shang-Chi. Now, this was a fairly surprising category to me. I found it very interesting that Shang-Chi was such an absolute winner, but I think perhaps he is just the poster boy for what that entire patch represented, which is an all-new era of Marvel Snap, a representation of the old era being phased out and the new era being phased in, and an imprimatur of approval from the community on the decision to decrease the viability and power of tech cards. Now, I do think it's possible that Juggernaut was maybe overlooked in this category, but he is frankly still so good that maybe that cost him a few votes. Either way, Shang-Chi, an extremely deserving winner of Best Nerf. The next category is Best Buff, meant to reward the dev team for whatever the best decision they made that made a card stronger was. And the nominees are War Machine, going to 5-9. Captain Carter, going to 3-2. Zombie Giant Man, going to 5-4, and an increase in the amount of horde he creates. And Kang the Conqueror, going to 3-4 with an all-new effect. And the winner is Captain Carter, going to 3-2, a very deserving winner. Captain Carter, for those who do not remember, was released as a season pass card at 4-3 and was roundly unplayable. At 3-2, she has been not necessarily a staple, but a very solid card in a variety of interesting decks since her release. She is very tied to the buff and or surfer archetype. That's an archetype that overlaps pretty heavily with itself a lot of the time, but she is still a card that you can reasonably play in various contexts. Notably, her synergy with Maverick is a recent addition to her portfolio that has kept her relevant across multiple metagames. A very deserving winner, Captain Carter. The next category is Worst Buff, the worst decision the dev team made all year in terms of something that made a card strong that they shouldn't have done. And the nominees are Misery, going to 4-9. What was the deal with that? Back to 4-8 basically immediately. Still arguably too strong at 4-8. Cerebro, going to +3 power. That's still really good. Mobius M. Mobius, going to 4 power for effectively no reason, and then going back to 3 power when they realized what a mistake that was. And of course, on the final category nominee is Ghost, going to 3-4 that theoretically does something, but realistically doesn't. And the winner is Ghost. in a fairly unsurprising result, in the sense that I am hosting this show and I don't think I could tell you what her exact text is. Ghost went from a card that did very little to a card that does even less. A card that in theory should be a reasonable answer to end of turn shenanigans, but in practice simply is not, because it isn't an ongoing effect, and it just doesn't do enough in a world where even a card with better stats and arguably a better ability in Super Adaptoid is vaguely unplayable. This whole rework did not seem incredibly well thought out. It felt reactive to the existence of Invisible Woman in a way that didn't even really solve for the existence of Invisible Woman's first steps and her incredibly powerful deck. Ghost, congratulations, you truly deserved this one. The next category is Worst Nerf, a balanced decision that made a card weaker that did not need to be weaker at all. And the nominees are Mr. Fantastic First Steps going from 2-2 to 3-4. Morgan Le Fay going from 4-7 to 3-4. Colleen Wing going from 2-4 to 2-3. And Storm going from 3-2 to 3-1. And the winner of the Golden Cube is Mr. Fantastic First Steps, aka Pedro Pascal. Come on down. Now, much like Pedro Pascal, Mr. Fantastic First Steps was in everything, and that became such a crucial part of what his identity was. Going to 3-4 made that identity absolutely disappear overnight. No longer in everything, in fact, in nothing. Basically just Fastos from a card that was an incredibly powerful and dominant Season Pass card. I think that this card actually paints a picture of what needs to happen to Shou Lao, or more accurately, what doesn't need to happen to Shou Lao. Because if they release a card that is strong and then take away the core identity of it, and sometimes strength does become part of the core identity, it doesn't have to, but sometimes it does, and it definitely did with this card. I think that can be a very backlash-intensive thing. This is a risk that they're running with a currently very strong Season Pass card available. They need to take a light hand with it, is what this message from the community tells me. Don't Pedro Pascal it. You have to be a little bit nicer than that. The next category is Worst Series 5 Card of the Year. And the nominees are Zombie Galacti. Now, don't blame me for this one. I nominated him before he got good. Zombie Captain Marvel. I think I stand by this one. Red Wing, who I actually nominated by virtue of running a random number generator over every Series 5 card because I didn't have enough, and also to make a joke out of how bad a lot of the Series 5 cards in this year were. And Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. I bet you forgot about him already. And the winner of the Golden Cube for Worst Series 5 is, in an incredible upset, Zombie Captain Marvel. Now, I came into this thinking that Thaddeus Ross probably had this one in the bag. I honestly wonder if this is purely just recency bias because Zombie Captain Marvel was bad and recent. I gotta tell you, I know this is unprofessional, but this is a case where I feel like the voters just got it wrong. This is disrespectful to Thaddeus Ross's long legacy of failure, his incredible amount of terrible garbage that he has unleashed on the metagame. Remember when people played him in Hella and it was like, oh, this might be good, and then it wasn't. It was just absolutely awful. Remember when people put him in Surtur and he probably made that deck worse too? I don't think he has ever additively added a single thing to a deck, but I can't honestly say that Zombie Captain Marvel doesn't honestly deserve this as well. A card that just works in very weird and confusing ways. I think the thing that probably would be argued to put her over the top and make this not a miscarriage of justice, this is definitely not like when Crash won the Oscar, is that Zombie Captain Marvel is bad in ways that are obscure. Thaddeus Ross is a bad card. Zombie Captain Marvel is bad because, like, sometimes her activate doesn't work depending on priority, and you have to know, like, all of this various intricate mechanics. I think that's a good argument for why Zombie Captain Marvel is worse, just I am surprised by the result. The next category is Best Season Pass, a pretty straightforward category. What was the best Season Pass of the year? And the nominees are Iron Patriot, the first Season Pass of the year and a true reset for how strong cards could be in Marvel Snap. Sam Wilson, an incredibly powerful Season Pass that has probably seen more balance changes than basically anything else and is still extremely elite. Merlin, the current terror combining with Sholau, but frankly, he's been like that for a while, and Agamotto, the one Season Pass that everyone liked and nobody complained about. And the winner of the Golden Cube is a landslide victory for Merlin, an incredibly impressive feat. Again, perhaps a bit of recency bias. I think Merlin is just also a much more fun card than either Sam Wilson or Iron Patriot. I think actually he executes pretty well on something Sam Wilson was just touching on, which is that it's fun to take game actions, but so much more of Merlin's power is in the game actions he gets to take, where Sam Wilson's power is largely related to the synergies that those game actions can bring you. So I think Merlin is a much more I would say a much more deserving winner of this, where a lot of what Sam Wilson is doing is not necessarily about Sam Wilson, but it's about Kraven, it's about Batroc. If you go back far enough, it was about Cull Obsidian, it was about the Shield, it was about things that were not Sam Wilson, whereas Merlin creating and casting those spells is such a unique thing. And there's one more aspect of Merlin that I really want to bring up. A lot of other cards that add cards to your hand, especially cheap ones, do so in batches. You look at Prowler, you look at Kate Bishop. What Merlin does makes it so much easier to manage your hand size, which is almost like he's the training wheel card for cards that add cards to your hand. It's a very notable advantage that he holds. The next category is Worst Bug. This one's pretty straightforward. It's for the worst bug of the year. And the nominees are Infinite Matchmaking. It's just been weird all year. Mysterio Stardust, perhaps the most obvious thing they should have checked with a card like Stardust, still crashed the game when Stardust came out. Notifications generally. There are too many things that go wrong with Marvel Snap's notifications for me to list. For me personally, this one impacts me by showing me 43 notifications for stuff I've already claimed out of my inbox. And of course, the blip. When, thanks to the interaction between the Trump administration, the Biden administration, the owners of TikTok, the Ellisons, and apparently CBS News, for some reason, the game we play, the game I make content on, went down in America for reasons that are still, frankly, a little bit unclear. And the winner of the Golden Cube is, in a shocking upset, notifications. I thought this would be a walk-in goal for the blip, but I kind of think that because the compensation for the blip was so good, people aren't actually that mad at it anymore, which is arguably a good thing, but it is kind of interesting to note that what is, I think, objectively the biggest deal that happened to Marvel Snap this year is overshadowed by a collective stack of annoyances, small little annoyances at the notifications this game sends out. There are so many things we could talk about for this category. I have an unget-riddable 43 notifications that I just cannot actually deal with. Another thing that constantly happens is sometimes they'll send out like push notifications to your phone that are advertising like the wrong card. This is a wide category with a lot of depth in it. An ocean versus kind of like a meteor is sort of what happened here. And in this case, the meteor that was the blip got swallowed by the ocean that is all the things that happen with notifications in Marvel Snap that just don't seem to work. Finally, we have the most anticipated award of the year, Deck of the Year. And the nominees are Victoria Hand, a constant presence at the top of the metagame. Cerebro 3, which won the Marvel Snap Golden Gauntlet World Championship in the hands of Zapgaze. Move, which was honestly just incredibly dominant, but in sort of a peaks and valleys kind of way. And 34-card Monty, maybe the most hated deck in the entirety of Marvel Snap. And the winner of the Golden Cube for Best Deck of the Year is Victoria, parentheses, give her a, close parentheses, hand. I mean, who else could it have been? This might be the most lopsided category in the entire field. This is like Lord of the Rings Return of the King here. It is just unquestioned dominance from Victoria Hand from the moment she came out in January of 2025. She was a relevant meta level deck and continued to be one. She pioneered the idea of friggaing your stuff to get more copies of your carries. She has done so much for so many people, a true pioneer, a true trailblazer, and still a relevant tier 2 deck even now. Just an unbelievable run from Victoria Hand, and I frankly have no reason to believe that it will not continue. An absolute all-star and well-deserved to Victoria Hand. Thank you so much for watching the Snappies, aka the Golden Cubes. I truly appreciate it. Remember, if you like this content, like and subscribe, leave a comment below. All of those things help me out. As always, I have been KMBest. You have been phenomenal. And I'll see you next. Oh my God.